quite a bit bigger. He's running right at me. Do you want an easy fishing rig that flat out catches bass? The Wacky Rig is a simple and effective approach to bass fishing and is a must-know for beginners and pros alike. On today's episode of Aquaholic Fishing, it's all about Wacky Rigging 101. We're gonna talk about the Wacky Rig, what it is, how to fish it, what to fish it on, how it's effective, all the different options and all the different details that'll have you catching 5 times more bass in a matter of minutes. Got it. Nice one. What in the world is a Wacky Rig? I take my favorite stick bait, I take a number 1, or a 1/0 hook. This one happens to be a wide gap, simply because I'm using a much bigger bait profile. I go somewhere near the egg sac, and I pierce that, and that, tied to your line, is a Wacky Rig. All right, we're simply gonna start with a little terminal tackle. So you can see here I got 2 Gamakatsu hook packages. Their item numbers are 50410, 50411. One is the size 1, the other is the 1/0. They are both split shot, drop shot hooks. The one on the bottom here is separate from these 2 packages. If you have a fatter Senko, if you have a thicker Senko, I like to use those wide gaps. Some like to use the VMC crossover ring. I like to use the 4, the 5, and the 6mm, depending on the size of the Senko. Why some prefer that crossover ring, others like to use just a regular O-ring. You can see this is actually a NACO ring. It's a little bit thicker. Let it sink, let it shimmer, let it shake, let it do the hokey pokey. This might be a nice fish here, guys. I mean, it's a nice fish regardless, but I just don't know how big at this point. He's running right at me. Good looking bass, guys. Not a giant, but about 1.25 pounds. I like to take my bait straight from the package and give them a real good rub down. You're gonna break apart that salt content, and you're gonna give that bait a whole different look inside that water column than most of those bass I've ever seen. This here is a wacky tool that you can use when you're wacky rigging your baits. You'll simply take the thick end or the thin end, however you want to do it. I like to use the thick end of the bait. Slide it in there. Slide it up onto the bigger part of that body, and then place the O-ring where you want it to be. Some will run it straight through the O-ring. Me, myself, I like to grab a little bit of meat of the bait and the O-ring as well, just for it to be a little more secure. If we take our wacky tool and we put 2 O-rings on there, we can cross those 2 over one another so we can run it in line with the bait and across the bait, just like we're doing with that VMC crossover. I got a bite there, guys. Got him. Got him pinned up. He's a small fry. And I mean a small fry. Look at you, my friend. I've got a 7.4 Shimano Zodius here, paired up with the Shimano Vanford Reel 3500. What rod should I use with my Wacky Rig? The book tells you 6.6 to 7 foot, moderate, medium, light action, something like that. Personally, 7'4", light power, fast action. Look at the parabolic bend on this. That tip is crazy fast. I use the length, the 7'4". The Shimano Vanford has an incredible buttery smooth drag system. Between the length of that rod, that real soft tip, and that buttery smooth drag system, there's no bass getting away from me on that Wacky Rig presentation. Crossover pliers. This is your crossover ring. Send the narrow end of your bait through. Figure out where you want that placement to be as far as where you want that crossover ring to be on the bait. Simply release it and pull it off. The cool thing about the VMC crossover, I don't know if you can see it here, but you can Wacky Rig it in both directions. So there's a hole to go across the bait, and there's also a hole to go in line. So no matter what direction you want to go with that VMC crossover, you can go either direction. What should I use as far as the baits on my Wacky Rig presentation? If you like Gary Yamamoto, send it. If you like Yum, send it. If you like Zoom, send it. Whatever bait manufacturer that you like, you're looking for a stick bait in the 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, or 6-inch variety to send out there on your Wacky Rig presentation, depending on the day. Sometimes the color is going to make a difference. Oftentimes it's simply that little bait profile right there that makes all the difference. You're just looking for that beautiful, natural, falling action. It's going to sit there and flutter and look so beautiful in that water column. The bass just cannot resist it, guys. If you're having problems with heavy current or really deep water, you can use a weighted Wacky Rig, but I choose to use no weight as often as I possibly can, or as little weight as possible. No giant, but it's an absolute beauty on that green pumpkin peppercorn stick bait, 5-inch. Many different lines and leader materials are going to work when fishing the Wacky Rig. I personally prefer 10-pound Power Pro braid as my main line. My connection knot is usually a double uni knot, and then I like to use Zuri 10-pound or 8-pound fluorocarbon line as far as my leader material goes. Some will go with straight braid, some fluorocarbon, some monofilament, some like a copolymer line. Personally, I just like that 10-pound braid Power Pro and that 10-pound fluorocarbon leader material. Keep an eye, always be a line watcher. Sometimes you're going to feel it, but always use your vision, your line of sight. I like to stay on that semi-slack line like it is right now, and I'll watch for that line to start walking one way or the other, or you'll see it just completely bounce or jump off the water column, and you know you got a bite. Always be a line watcher. Just be careful, because you're using these small hooks, they'll swallow it real quick, and if you're not keeping the fish, you could really damage the fish. And we're definitely not trying to do that. Not giving a whole lot of time down in there. I never do. Usually my first fall, as soon as it hits the water, like that there, or that first fall is where you're going to get bit on the Wacky Rig. Sometimes you can work it and try to get that bite. Right there, I'm watching my line and I felt something. I think I have a small bite. Got him. Little fella. Hope you guys learned something about fishing the Wacky Rig today. We talked about Wacky Rig fishing. We talked about the size of your rod, the reel, the different things we can do from the VMC to the O-ring to just using a hook going straight through the bait. The Wacky Rig is one of the simplest and easiest presentations to get bit by the largemouth bass. The reason being is just super natural. You're not throwing a whole bunch of extra weights and clips and swivels and hooks and all this other different stuff inside the water column. Looks like a much more natural approach, something the bass probably sees in a water column on a regular basis. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. If you can, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.